All right, here we go. Crappy video number 5. I feel like at this point I've earned the right to make my first React video. And perhaps appropriately, I'll be reacting to a video of one of my all-time favorite YouTuber slash Twitch creators, Asmongold. Now, lately he's been a much different content creator than in the past. I don't know if it's when he re-monetized his Zach Rar channel, if that changed the way he makes content. He had said once, many months ago, that one of the reasons he switched to a non-monetized channel is to just change the way he felt about making content. And I wonder if that's connected to the fact that ever since he monetized, he seems to be trying harder to make more controversial takes. He goes really extreme on topics that he just has no clue about. Now, if he's talking about streaming, if he's talking about MMOs, if he's talking about World of Warcraft, tons of video game topics, he knows his shit, and he's an expert, and I would trust a lot of his opinions and a lot of his takes, even if they flew in the face of things that I thought. But there are topics he talks about that he doesn't know anything about. Talks about politics in areas where he's clueless, and he talks about game development in areas where he's clueless. And there is a huge difference between knowing a lot about games and knowing a lot about game development. Just like you could be an incredible food critic, but you don't know anything about how to cook. You can eat at restaurants, but you're not ready to be a chef. And I think that's the case here. So this one's, it's not really a big deal. And I actually think off camera, if I had a conversation with him, he'd go back on this take, but it really bugged me. And here we go. No one's going to see my video anyway, so here we go.
Another. So take the time to celebrate the wins and lift each other up.
Oh, wait, before we get to this, the context. This is about Drakengard, Veilguard, Dragon's Age, Veilguard, and the fact that the director had just quit. And this was the game director's letter to the rest of the team. Unfortunately, Asmongold appears to be reacting to somebody who was repeatedly calling this director he, him, and I'm 99% sure the director is a trans woman. So honestly, I gotta say, right off the bat, Asmongold's choice to react to this person and signal boost it, his channel, is dubious. It's really not that hard to respect people's pronouns. Come on, folks. It's so freaking easy. Just show people some basic respect. Let's just be human beings here. And so for Asmongold to give that guy a signal boost, that already bugged me. And then here we go with this take.
I hate how people say like making video games is hard, as if competing in any other industry isn't hard.
First of all, when people say video games are hard, they are rarely saying that it is hard to the exclusion of other jobs being hard. So that's the first mistake right there. I have been making video games for 40 years. I would definitely say it's hard. It is hard to the point that I discourage both of my children from going into that industry, despite them both having interest. Um, I teach video game design, so I teach people who want to go into the industry, and I still always caution them to make sure they're learning all the fundamental computer programming, computer engineering tasks because the industry is really freaking brutal. But even when people say video games are hard, they are rarely saying it's the only thing that's hard, or it's the most difficult, or it's harder than everything else. So right off the bat, already is a straw man arguing against something that people don't say.
Like being a garbage man is hard. Being a construction worker is hard. Working in a kitchen, I think, is hard.
All right, let's stop right here. Now we're getting into the problem of defining the word hard. Is being a garbage man physically grueling? Far more physically grueling than making games? Absolutely. Is it, does it take a strong stomach and an ability to not get grossed out by other people's garbage? Absolutely. If that is way you want to define hard, then yeah, those are harder. But I don't think when people talk about video game development being hard, that's clearly not what they're talking about. They're clearly not saying video game development is more physically grueling than being a garbage man or a construction worker. So this is already a ridiculous comparison. They're talking about the challenges of video games being complicated, hard in a way that is complicated. It is hard to achieve your goals because they are so amorphous and challenging and multifaceted and deep and broad. It is not hard in that way to be a garbage man. You show up for work on time, you get on the truck, and you put the garbage in the truck. Maybe there's a little more nuance to it than that, but for the most part, that's the job. Construction work, for the most part, you show up, you are told what to do, and you do it. It is. There is a reason why there is no degree needed for either of those jobs. There's no unique training. They're both unskilled labor. They are not hard from the sake of complexity whatsoever. And a ton of other working in a kitchen. There is you don't even have to speak the same language as everybody else, and you can work in a kitchen and be quite good at it. You know, like working in a kitchen, is it grueling? Yes. Is it tiring? Yes. But for the most part, for a lot of the people working in the kitchen, it's really freaking simple. The chef tells you exactly how to put the ingredients together or exactly how to chop up ingredients and prep, whatever, depending on where your level is. And it's really not that complicated. Now, at the levels of a chef or a sous chef or things like that, of course, the complexity is starting to ramp up. And interestingly enough, why is it ramping up? Why does it become really difficult to be a great chef? I'll loop back to that in a second.
Jobs are hard. And if you're in a competitive job at a high level, it's going to be even harder.
Okay, bam. So you've already now conceded that some jobs are harder than others simply because of the competitiveness. You've already given up the argument here. I don't think anybody would argue that the video game industry is not one of the most competitive industries out there. Certainly to sell your game, it's extremely competitive. To get a job is outrageously competitive. To keep your job is even more competitive. There's layoffs constantly. So to keep your job, to get your job in the first place and then to keep your job is unbelievably competitive. Typically, when you look at salary breakdowns, game developers make less than computer and software engineers in other fields with the same level of skill and experience. Typically anywhere 20 to 50% less. It's brutal. You'll make far more money in computer and software engineering doing things that are not game related. So you're taking far less pay for your level of skill, and you have far less job security, and the competitiveness to succeed is massive, which he already conceded. High level of competition makes a job harder.
There's nothing special about making video games that makes it uniquely hard.
Bam. This is the part that really set me off. And the reason this one really pisses me off is because it's somewhat obvious and he should know better. And the industry that he's in should also make him know better. Something I say to my students all the time, and some version of this, I'll say game development is the same as software development. It has all the same challenges, difficulties, processes, languages, version control, etc. But games have the added kicker that they have to be fun. That's the killer. And that is what makes games uniquely hard. He says there's nothing that makes it uniquely hard. Wrong. The fact that games have to be hard the games have to be fun is what makes them uniquely hard. Most jobs, if you are given task A, B, and C, and you do them in a timely manner according to proper instructions, you crush it at your job. If you insert tab A into slot A every time, reliably, consistently, efficiently, on time, you're great at your job. That's just the way it is. If you're writing accounting software, as long as it adds the numbers up, you succeed. If you're working on Photoshop, as long as it manipulates the images, you've succeeded. AutoCAD, all sorts of software development, as long as the software does what it's supposed to do, you're successful. Boom. That's it. But games have to have all those accomplishments. They have to work. They have to be relatively bug free. They have to do whatever the task is that they claim they're going to do. But they have a giant burden of having to be fun. And on top of that, what is fun? Define fun for me. Define what makes something fun. It's almost impossible to even define that because fun is a weird, amorphous concept that's difficult to get a handle on. Things that are fun today might not be fun 5 years from now because tastes change. If you play the first MOBA you play might be your favorite MOBA. The first RTS you play might be your favorite RTS. The first action RPG genre. Eventually you might get sick of a certain type of game, and it doesn't mean that other games in that genre are bad. It just means you've had enough. And that's just the way it is. So that's one of the unique things that makes games uniquely hard. And what irritates me is he should know better because his world is entertainment and it has the same problem. You could stream 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, incredibly consistently, great equipment, wonderful enunciation, play interesting games, talk to your chat, do all the things that they all say you need to do to be a streamer and succeed. And 2 years from now, you might have 12 viewers. And that's just too bad. Because if you aren't entertaining, if you don't gather an audience because something about you is different and unique and amusing, you're just not going to grow. That's just life as a streamer, as a YouTuber, whatever. You're a creator. You're in the world of entertainment, and entertainment is fickle. There is not a set formula for what is fun or what is entertaining, and that is always going to be something about games that is uniquely hard. And like I said, I actually think Asmongold understands that. I think he knows it about streaming, and I think if he wasn't trying so hard at the moment to be so incendiary, I don't think he'd even make this take. Um, Maybe he's mad at Dragon Age because it's a once great franchise that has fallen apart. Um, I disagree with a lot of people why Dragon Age Veilguard is bad. I'm not going to go into that here. I'll probably have a video about it someday. But I just really wanted to make this video. I have always been a big fan of Asmongold. I think he's an expert on tons of issues. I wish he would tone it down when he ventures into an area that he's not an expert because he uses the same tone of authority that he uses with the areas where he is an expert when he wanders into the areas where he is not. And that's the problem. And sometimes I think that's where being super popular and having everybody tell you how smart and great you are can be dangerous because it can be very easy to think you're an expert on everything. And in this case, I think he's totally dead wrong. There are elements of making games that are uniquely hard, and I think that should be respected. Does it mean that you should tolerate a bad game? Absolutely not. If a game is bad and it's not fun, you should refund it or you shouldn't buy it. Um, I wish I could refund Dragon Age. I waited 2 months after buying it to play it, but it doesn't make it okay to make a bad game. But I think that for the sake of understanding the industry and the product, it is good and fair to understand that that is a unique challenge. And that's it. Crappy video number 5 complete.